What's the worst thing that could happen if we, tee this topic up and we don't go anywhere?
Right.
Well, like you said, you'll probably come over and take my cat and drown it.
Yeah.
So I don't think that's going to happen.
Yeah, probably not. I'm gonna tie it to one of those big ducks out there in the pond and let him go at it. Right. So.
I'll bet the cat would win that one. Guys, we're just kind of rambling here. Jeff maybe doesn't know I started the recording. He just assumes, I've always started the recording.
Yeah.
So we've been sort of discussing a topic before we started the recording. Not really sure how to attack it, but I do think it's very important. And that is, first of all, how are you, man?
Doing great. Still doing great.
Still? Today?
Why not? Yeah, still today.
Yeah.
Still doing great.
Okay,
we're on, we're off, we're back. I got in between stuff,
Yeah. Well, we actually recorded a few sessions this morning, and then Honey Bunch and I went out there and worked hard.
Nice.
We hit for solid, and we went hard for about 60 minutes, and then she said, I've had enough, so she came in, I stayed out and did my sprints and my planks and my push-ups and my volley lunges, and then they have these benches there, these hard benches, wood benches, where you can do the step up and look over
nice.
And do and the other leg comes up. So by the end of it, just pouring sweat. I mean, it's nice down here today. It's a solid 77 today.
Nice.
And
nice. You on the grass?
Yeah, on the grass. I mean, the back grass courts are laying fallow right now. So there's another bank we played on, and then you go in the back courts with nothing. There's no nets. There's no nothing, and you just have this whole patch of green. And like you mentioned this morning, you got the San Jacintos in the background, a little snow on top. You got the iPhone. It's cranked up. And again, I'm not into the fire up hip hop, whatever it is. I'm into the smooth jazz. The female singers singing about life.
Awesome.
Singing about
life.
That's
great, man.
So anyway,
all right.
But so here we are, and we're just going to see if we can find something with this topic. And what I wrote down today was. It's actually from a Tim Ferriss quote that I was reading earlier today, and he didn't obviously put it in tennis terms. I sort of hybridized it for tennis terms, but he was kind of saying, like entrepreneurs who try something, it's kind of like, well, what's the worst that could possibly happen? You learn something,
right?
It's not like because you weren't successful. That meant that, okay, you're done. You've now got to go work at, McDuck's, as the guy cleaning up the grease traps. You can come back and do it again. So for me, it was like, and I've goofed around sometimes with this thought where I'm about to pull the trigger in a shot, and I just go, I kind of have that thought. What's the worst could happen? Nothing.
Nothing changed. Yeah,
and
nations didn't go to war.
No.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I think that, and a lot of the players that we've been working with lately, guys and gals who were in that 4-0, 4-5 range. We had a guy, a 5-0 guy, and he actually, I thought, was more in that mindset, like, you know what, I got to pull the trigger now. I got to do something. And maybe that's not really what I'm sensing with this thing, but it's more like if you're going to go for a shot, and what I mean by going for the shot is swing freedom. Stop being tight. Stop being nervous. Stop caring if you miss it. Just go heavy duty right up the middle and say, here you are, Frank. What are you going to do with this thing? Rather than chickening out and, there's a little opening up the line, there's a little opening, or I'm going to hit the dropper so that it actually bounces back in my side of the net because I don't want the guy to touch it. So I think we care too much. We care too much
Yeah.
if we miss. And so, anyway, I'm throwing that out there. Maybe you got something better than I can articulate right now in terms of what's the worst thing that can happen if we have swing freedom. I'm not talking about just going crazy, trying to hit the biggest dinger up the line ever hit. But what's worst that can happen if we have swing freedom and let her go?
Well, gosh, so many thoughts like going bing, bing, bing right into my head. So one is if you took your own stats.
Okay, now you got to repeat that because you have totally locked up on the screen here. We've got buffering central. I can't hear a thing you're saying.
Are you still?
There you go. You've just come back.
Yeah.
So again,
there we go.
Yeah.
So if we looked at player stats of let's say a 4-0 player and a player who's like kind of committed to a style and they're not going to change their forehand because they know this is what, you know what I mean? They've got this hard edge about doing things a certain way, right? And so it's like, listen, how many times do you need to prove that this method isn't the best or that this method doesn't work? How many times are you going to go for this pattern and then go for this shot down the line and miss that shot 8 out of 10 times down the line, but the 2 that you made keep you coming back? The odds, obviously, if I'm the other guy on the court, the other side of the court, I'm going to milk you for that all day long, and I'll give you the 2 highlight reel shots, and I'll take the other 8 points all day long. Lather, rinse, repeat, right? So
I'm looking at you when you say that, and I'm thinking, the whole shampoo thing. I don't know what the lather rinse repeat.
I never thought of that. That's good, man. I'll have to rethink that one.
Well, just make sure you have a hat on or something.
Yeah, have a hat on or a wig or something. Anyway, so that's one idea. There is that, and you can see this in league tennis. You know, the emotion, the pride, the ego gets out there.
Right.
And it's so in the way of seeing the reality of what it is you think you're trying to do. Wasting your first serve all day long trying to hit the big flat boomer and hitting literally in 2 sets of tennis 5 first serves, right? And the rest of the time you're hitting this little pancake something in there that okay, gosh darn it, I was really hitting my serve great yesterday. Well, that was yesterday. Today's today, right?
Right.
So there's that aspect of it where you're so entrenched in the the ego and the pride, everything getting in the way of you actually seeing the reality of what you do. So that's one aspect of this, I think, about how do I get to being able to not be so, caring so much, right? So the caring is also, it's like right there.
Well, like a lot of times guys will...
I know what it is. It's being emotionally attached to the outcome. Right?
Yeah.
We are so emotionally attached to the outcome. So shorter points are easier to contend with than a long point. If the whole match is going along and primarily everything's happening between, 3 and 6 hits, there's a certain rhythm to that kind of match. And then all of a sudden we're in this long rally, and then it's 20 hits. And then all of a sudden you make the mistake, and somehow you're overly upset. But the reality is that point doesn't count any more than the other ones do. It counts for one point, right?
That's it.
No more, no less.
Yeah.
The guy that I just banged an ace, and I just had a 20-ball rally that I just lost. They both count the same, right? So the reality, though, is that there is no can I detach from that emotional attachment to that longer point and walk away from it knowing it's the same number. It's 1. It counts as 1, And then the other thing, the stats right now show that the number 1 player in the world, and it doesn't matter if it's been Rafa, Roger, Djokovic, whoever, wins 55% of their points, not sets. They win 55% of their points over the course of a year. Okay, so that's really interesting, because that means that out of every 100 points, they lose 45. That's what that means. So they're quite comfortable losing 45 out of 100 points. That's amazing to me, that they have that kind of mindset, that they stay, and we can watch them play, watching Roger, Rafa, Djokovic. They stay this even keel, occasionally have a little flair, but they keep this level mental focus and not allow point to point judge the impact of like, you know what I mean?
Well,
I mean,
yeah, it's like that. If you're a serve and volley guy, if you're trying to learn how to serve and volley, or if you're trying to learn how to chip and charge, and you're trying to take the short ball and come in, and too often what happens is you get passed once,
right?
And you go, well, I can't do this because it's like, to me, you get passed once. I said, well, what's the worst thing that can happen?
Right.
What's the worst? Well, first of all, everyone's still going to like you. It's okay. And you actually got permission to still like yourself.
Right.
But you're right. That is one point, and it doesn't mean that now because you lost that one point that you should abandon it. I think where I'm trying to get to more is in shot execution. I see way too many players, and I do this myself, where it's like I just don't feel the swing freedom,
right?
Because I care too much about the outcome. I care too much
right.
about the result. And if you look at and if you look at the guys who you just talked about, and they're winning 55%, they've all got swing freedom, right? They don't care because they realize that if I don't have swing freedom, then I'm not going to be number one in the world. I'm not going to be in the top 50 in the world.
Right.
I have to let it go. It's
right.
kind of like,
and that,
this is my job. This is, my boss
right.
says, if you don't let it go,
right,
then I'm sorry, but then you will be working somewhere else. You won't be on the tour.
Right.
So you have to have that mindset, like, I care, but I really don't care because I'm letting it go.
I think that's one of the, as a teaching pro too, it's also one of the toughest things to get your students to embrace. And that is, the maximum control is you allowing yourself to swing the racket, not to micromanage the swing and try and control the swing and the spin and the how pace and all the other details, that get stuffed in our head. But getting to that point, have you hit enough of them to know that the ultimate in control is in that swing freedom?
Yeah.
That's when the ball does its, it does its thing, man. It does the dip because I wanted it to dip. It does the high roll because I wanted it to roll. It does the inside out backhand carve up the line where it's bending right to left, and it does this beautiful thing because you let it go.
Yeah. Well,
and we're not talking about just a wild swing. These things are trained, but the freedom is in, can you mentally stay in that state where you trust and you hit your ball?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, look, I think that, when guys think of swing freedom, they think too much. Well, that means I get to go for a dinger.
Right.
I get to go for the dinger. And there's not enough thought in terms of, well, why can't I have swing freedom right back down the middle of the court, right back down the middle of the third of the court, force the guy to have great footwork. Now, that's shot choice right there. But you can't have swing freedom if you don't create spacing. And I think what happens way too much is, maybe this is kind of where I'm trying to go with, what's the worst thing that could happen if you miss this shot? Well, obviously nothing. Nothing. I mean, it doesn't mean anything, right? It's a game, people. We're supposed to be having a good time out there. It literally doesn't mean anything. But you can't have swing freedom if you haven't created spacing first. And
room to swing the racket.
You've got and you've got to have that space over there. And I always like to think, well, I want I want to create a little bit, maybe extra space if I have time, so I can come back into it. Rather than, maybe at the last second I got to move away a little bit. Well, then you don't have swing freedom. You just can't.
In my head, I know that when I'm really, spacing well and getting it right, the sensation I have is it gives me the sense that I have unrestricted access to the ball. And it just allows me to think that I can do anything with it, and that's what it feels like to me.
Right.
This is interesting. As you were talking there, the thought, you said it's about, the shot selection, and do you have the freedom to do it, not to be, hyper, this and go for the dinger, but to hit this beautiful heavy ball up the center right at the guy, or whatever your shot selection is. And I wonder, and who knows what kind of impact this has, but when you. And I do this, you go on YouTube and you watch a reduced video of the highlights of a match. Well, now you're watching 5 minutes, 10 minutes of a 2-hour match. And all you're seeing is the beautiful stuff.
Right.
So I'm wondering, even like that, how much impact does that have? When on your Facebook feed, the U.S. Open shot of the day, right? The Indian Wells shot of the day.
Yeah.
And and this stuff is off the charts athleticism and diving and between the legs and casual no look, all this stuff, and the dingers that are just unbelievable. And so I'm wondering, what does that have as an impact on the club player, the league player, that when they watch professional tennis, that's all they see? And so is that part of the mindset that says, you know what, aren't I supposed to hit a winner to win the point?
Yeah, right.
Right? So I don't know. I think that'd be an interesting study. I don't know how you would quantify it, but I think that might have maybe a little subconscious impact on the tennis population at large, that all they're seeing is this this unattainable thing. But anyway, I don't know.
But that's kind of where we're at. That's the whole. What are they going to show? They got to show you. They're not going to show you 10 minutes of the guy hit 10 winners today to win points,
right?
And he won another 80 points because the other guy missed,
right? And I'm not saying they shouldn't show the highlights. I love it. I love being able to see the reduced version. Without a doubt, I love it. I'm just in my own head. I'm kind of wondering. Does that have an impact on the impression that a 4-0 player has on how the game is actually played?
That's good. Wow. Maybe that's the best thing you've said today.
All year.
Where are we? 2019. Yeah. Outstanding. All right, guys. Well, listen, I hope you got something from today's Go Ball Hunting podcast. Jeffrey, good stuff as always. Guys, we're still offering a complimentary private 10-minute coaching call. The three of us, you, me, and Jeff, will get in a 3-way call. Spend 10 minutes, maybe a couple minutes extra, and we want to chat with you about that one thing in your game right now that maybe you have don't have quite the swing freedom that you want on it.
Exactly.
Whatever it is. And we want to help kind of put you on the path to get that result that you want. The way to do that, if you're not on our email list, go over to goalballhunting.com, drop in the first name and email address, and then click I believe it's the submit. I don't know which button it is, but it says do something. And then you'll get dropped into our online calendar where you can schedule, you can cherry pick your own date and time when you want to hang out with me and Jeff for a little bit and bring that number one thing in your game that you just cannot solve right now. If you're already on our email list, the bottom of every email, there's a link that will take you to the online calendar scheduler. Man, I'm never going to get it, man. Never going to get it. All right, Jeff, the light is on you there, son.
All righty. So here's what we'd like you to do. Like us, share us, please subscribe, and let us know what you think down below.
Outstanding. Well, guys, listen, thanks again for hanging out. Get out there today. Right out there. Help someone else have a spectacular day. Jeffrey, we're definitely going to do this again tomorrow.
I'm looking forward to it. Can't wait.